thirsty wildlife also enjoy it, and some of the water is diverted and used by cities, towns, and industries along the way. When dams are built to store rivers' flow, a lake or reservoir is formed. These rivers, lakes, streams, and reservoirs are vital to our everyday life. The main uses for this water include irrigation, producing electricity, cooling equipment, agriculture, and drinking water. Of course, this also includes cooking, cleaning, bathing, and even recreational activities. Let's take a closer look at Arizona's two major water providers. The Salt River Project has been delivering water through 131 miles of canals in Arizona for more than 100 years. Because we live in the desert, we typically do not get much rain, so we need to bring water into cities and towns from other parts of Arizona. When snowfall in the mountains northeast of Phoenix melts, it forms small streams which come together to form the Salt and Verde rivers. This area is known as our watershed and covers approximately 13,000 square miles. The amount of snowmelt from our watershed varies from year to year. Since there is typically never a consistent supply of runoff, SRP constructed several dams along the Salt and Verde rivers, which created lakes or reservoirs to store the excess water. SRP controls the amount of water released from these reservoirs depending on whether we have a wet or dry winter. The reservoirs allow us to store the water for later use. When water is released from the storage reservoirs, it is then delivered to cities and towns through a series of canals. The Central Arizona Project, or CAP, carries fresh water from the Colorado River to millions of people in central and southern Arizona. CAP is a collaborative project that started back in 1922 with the federal government and the 7 states that share Colorado River water. After decades of lobbying, a bill approving the construction of the CAP canal was passed by Congress in 1968. Construction of the 335-mile-long project began in 1973 near Lake Havasu and was completed 20 years later just south of Tucson. Water in the CAP canal is lifted by 15 pumping plants almost
Welcome everybody attending tonight's meeting. Glad to have you with us. We're going to begin with a roll call. Chairman Sean Hutchinson is not present, but we understand he may be joining us a little later in the meeting. Secretary Jay Otluski. Present. Commissioner Linda Grice.
Present.
Commissioner Clay Alsop.
Present.
Commissioner Joanna Condi.
Present.
Commissioner Danette Dunn.
Present.
And I, Vice Chairman Jeff Nelson, am present. And did I get everybody?
So am I.
Commissioner Brian Patterson, my apologies.
Present.
All right, now we got everybody. I'd like to read an opening statement that we begin all meetings with. This commission is composed of Peoria citizens who have been appointed by the city council to serve on the commission as a civic responsibility without compensation. Our duty is to study and review planning and zoning issues within the city of Peoria. The commission hears zoning cases, holds public hearings, or may conduct a study session on a topic. Decisions made by the commission are forwarded as written recommendations, to the city council, who take final action. All hearings are conducted in accordance with rules for procedures and Robert's Rules of Order. Each case will be called in the order in which it appears on the agenda unless otherwise announced during the meeting. In the interest of maintaining a fair and efficient hearing, the commission adheres to the following steps. Chair will open the case. City staff will then provide a brief report and recommendation. The applicant is then invited to give a presentation. Then any member of the public may provide testimony. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes. When we call your name, please come up to the podium and provide your name and address. After all that testimony has been taken, we'll invite the applicant back up to provide any rebuttal or final statements. The commission will then discuss the case and make its decision. Anyone wishing to speak must complete a speaker's request form and hand it to the commission assistant on my left. When providing testimony, we ask that you please be as brief as possible and avoid repeating statements already made by others. Any member of the public may appeal to the city council the decision of the commission regarding a conditional use permit. The appeal must be submitted in writing to the Planning and Community Development Department within 15 calendar days of the date of the commission's decision. All commission recommendations on public hearing items, including general plan amendments, rezone, zoning code amendments, and special plans, move forward to a regular city council meeting. The city council will then act on the recommendation of the commission. The city council may concur with the decision, modify it, overturn it, or remand it back to the commission for further consideration. We welcome citizens' comments, and as fellow citizens of Peoria, we thank you in advance for your participation. This is the final call to submit speaker request forms. If anyone wishes to speak, please fill out a speaker request form and provide it to Ms. Ernest seated at the end of the dais. Next up is consent agenda. The consent agenda is for items that are routine in nature and consists of 2 items tonight. Item 1C is disposition of absences. Discussion and possible action to approve and excuse the absence of Chairman Sean Hutchinson and Commissioner Alsop from the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on December 13th, 2018. Now, item 2C, discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on December 13, 2018. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments about the consent agenda item before us tonight? All right, seeing none, may I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Otluski. We have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Alsop. We have a motion and a second to approve tonight's consent agenda. Please vote. And consent agenda passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioners. Next, we move on to our regular agenda. We have 2 items before us tonight. First is item 3R, Old Town Mixed Use District Text Amendment, case TA 16-0002. This is a request to consider a city-initiated amendment to section 21-622 of the Peoria zoning ordinance to update the permitted uses within the Old Town Mixed Use District. Staff, please present your report.
0002. It's been a while since I've seen all of you, but I had a bit of a warm-up last week with Historic Preservation Commission. So hopefully I do not trip on my words too badly this evening. The city, we staff members are initiating this amendment. It is specifically to section 21-622 of our Peoria zoning ordinance. This is found within the Old Town Mixed Use District section. And tonight's topic is regarding the land use matrix or the allowable use list of uses within Old Town. Old Town is shown on the map on the right of the screen. It is bounded by the red line that you see surrounding the area immediately north of us. Peoria is the northernmost boundary, Peoria Avenue, I should state. Monroe Street is the southern boundary, 85th Avenue, the western boundary, and Grand Avenue, the eastern boundary. This contains Suna Park, the Center for Performing Arts, our community center, as well as a number of businesses and residential homes in the area. The purpose of tonight's amendment, you will see us again later on, hopefully this year, to do a more thorough, comprehensive update for the entire section. But tonight's topic is specifically about the allowable uses, as mentioned, which is geared to allowing additional new businesses that we are not addressing currently, that always encourages a mixture of appropriate uses and hopefully increases business development within the area. This is a bit of background on where we are today. Many years ago, 2004 specifically, is when the Old Town Mixed Use District was created. This made the CCM and CRM zoning. I'll unpack that in the next slide for you a little bit. 2009, we developed the Old Town Revitalization Plan. This laid out the roadmap for strategies and implementation of what we wanted to see for Old Town. And then in 2012, we adopted the specific area plan, almost a miniature general plan that I know all of you are very familiar with over the past few months in presentations we've given, that talked about the land use designations and hopefully further refine the type and quality of development we were looking to do. The two specific ones we were going to talk about this evening, CCM, Core Commercial Mixed Use. These are specifically, you would think commercial first, residential second. Retail and service businesses, you can have the occasional residential component mixed in with this cultural, social, recreational, entertainment uses. The other, CRM, Core Residential Mixed Use, normally you'd think single family residence first. There are some allowances contained within it already for pedestrian-oriented goods and services, family-owned businesses, very small-scale sort of activities. You can see that the CCM in the orange in front of you on the map really contains the 83rd Avenue spine, the Washington Street spine, and then somewhat spills into adjacent areas where we do have existing businesses today, while the core residential mixed use contains some of our most historic homes along Madison and Monroe Street in the southeast corner of the area, and some of the workforce housing that was developed in the 20s and 30s in the southwest corner. We additionally have a park and open space zoning district that will not be part of tonight's conversation. As you can see in front of you, the park open space zoning district designation has not been used. I wanted to highlight some of the specific change. I'm sorry about my mouse. Let me not show too much just yet. Some of these uses I'm going to break down for you as far as allowable uses, removed uses, and uses that we've clarified that really needed just a little bit of tweaking. The first, the allowable uses include indoor recreation or indoor theater uses, recreational and social clubs, massage establishments, and you'll note the hashtag on that one and the bottom one I'll unpack a little further. Tanning, nail, barber, beauty shops, those sorts of hair and makeup establishments. And then the tattoo and body piercing studios. These hashtags, pound signs, whichever you prefer to use, are what are known as limitations on use. This comes from 21-503 of the zoning ordinance, which deals with non-residential uses. Anytime there are some uses that require additional conditions, you've seen this in past, such as massage establishment has the limitations on hours between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. Tattoo and body piercing studio has limitations of distance separations for other tattoo shops, non-chartered financial institution, payday loan, pawn shops, retail liquor stores, some of those more sensitive uses that you would think of. These are not changing, so these limitations are still in place for massage establishment and tattoo and body piercing. As well, tattoo and body piercing still requires a conditional use permit. None of that is being changed through this amendment. Uses that we removed, the essential public service or utility, the custom dressmaking furrier, in case it does get cold and you need a fur coat, or the millinery, as well as the watch and clock repair shop, were all uses that were already addressed through other land use items. In this section I'll talk about in the next slide. The recycling collection point is no longer valid as the city offers commercial and residential pickup. And the video rental store, although vintage in nature, is being removed through this amendment. The use is clarified, so the appliance sales, rentals, and repair, does cover watch and clock repair. That's a more broad category to address that one. The dressmaking and the furrier fits within the established clothing alteration land use category that we have already in the code. The public facilities use right there in the middle of that list would cover the Center for Performing Arts, would cover any of our utility installations if ever needed. And then another one that was removed but addressed is coffee shop. We called out coffee shop. Restaurants without bar or drive-through covers that use already. There wasn't a need for duplicity in those items. Now, the limitations on use changed contrary to the other one I just spoke on for massage establishments and for tattoo and body piercing studio. The hashtag or pound sign has been removed for nursing or convalescent home and for and for tavern, bar, and lounge. Why is this? The nursing or convalescent home requires an arterial or collector road connection point. Neither of those are found within the Old Town Mixed Use District. So we had a situation where, although the use was allowed, we couldn't meet our own stipulated limitations because 85th, 84th, dependent on how 83rd is classified through Old Town. It was unlikely that we could create a situation for that use to occur. Tavern, bar, or lounge is still a conditional use permit, meaning this commission would still see any proposal for tavern, bar, or lounge in Old Town. The hashtag that was there required a separation from a residential zoning district. Core residential mixed use is a residential zoning district. So to think that a tavern, bar, or lounge could occur within Old Town and still have a separation just was not feasible. Again, a conditional use permit still required. Any limitations or stipulations that this commission wants to address through that approval can still be done. The other one on that list I did not mention is the single-family residential. Currently, it is allowed in CCM, which is more geared towards the commercial mixed use. We do not want to still have that as an option. Single family should be first and foremost within core residential mixed use. If there is a residential component that is desired within the CCM area, we would look for a multifamily approach instead. The key findings for this evening for this very surgical amendment to address our land uses is it does provide new business opportunities within Old Town. This refinement of language and limitations provides additional clarity for how we move forward with these proposals. And this does represent a benefit in our revitalization efforts. If you've been around Old Town lately, you've seen a number of things occur with the new, the pots are now decorated for the planters. The Driftwood Coffee Shop is doing incredible business, and we're looking at additional placemaking efforts that are occurring as we speak throughout the area. This does not require any public outreach. This does, however, represent all of the discussions that we've had as a city with our stakeholders, with our business owners, with our citizens, of course, also regarding how to keep vitalizing Old Town Peoria. With that, our request for you this evening is to recommend approval of case TA 16-0002 to City Council. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your report. Any commissioners have any questions of staff? Oh, excuse me. Commissioner Otluski.
First, I need to say I'm thankful that we left the furrier in there. I would hate to see that not allowed in there. The downtown area, I'm glad to see that we're getting a little more headway on that again. We've bounced back and forth a couple times there, it sounds like, over the years. With these changes, are these being made primarily because we have interest in locating there, or is this in preparation of interest?
Commissioner Otluski, great question. It's both. It really is. We have had people come in, small business owners, specifically for the beauty shop. They wanted to go into the Wagner Plaza, which contains the Peoria Cafe, a seemingly great fit for the area to address local concerns. Unfortunately, not outright permitted in Old Town Peoria, so that is an example of current interest we have in the area, as well as to address future opportunities, yes.
Okay. And I've attended, and I haven't seen or been to a meeting lately about downtown, Old Town. Some of the thoughts and ideas that came out of those individual meetings, are we any closer to trying to solidify something that we can do with that to enhance it so that we do see that interest?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lucy, as Randy indicated, there's actually a number of things that are occurring, discussions, and what we're going to see very soon in and around the Old Town area. Randy mentioned some placemaking efforts. There's going to be some new elements that we'll see in Old Town as part of this upcoming fiscal year. Also, there's discussions about potential streetscape efforts along 83rd and other areas in Old Town. So you'll be, we'll prize you very soon of a study session that will be coming to City Council to talk about some proposed streetscape elements. And so there's just a lot of attention right now on the whole town area. We see some budding interest and some momentum that's beginning. And so this effort, I think, supplements that whole interest that we're starting to see in Old Town.
Cool. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Condi, you had a question?
I did. My question is, there may be people watching. What is the hope for Old Town? What is your long-term goal to see for what we have down here for Old Town? There are empty lots. There are old houses that are in good shape, some that are bad. There are old buildings that are in awful shape. What would you like to see? What is the goal?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Condi, excellent question. You know, we've certainly studied the Old Town area in the last several years. And what the city is trying to do is to restore Old Town to its former position, which was a vital city center. And so to do that, the Old Town area needs a critical mass. And a critical mass comes in the form of additional density, more units to kind of activate the streets, have potential users for businesses in the area. Also, there's some opportunity sites in and around Old Town where we could introduce perhaps larger employers or a destination attractor that would bring outsiders into the area. I think one thing we're seeing that's under construction right now is the Maricopa Integrated Health Service building that not only is going to bring 300 jobs, but it's also going to bring services, and it's going to bring outsiders to the building. So these are potential new customers for the Old Town area. So with that, I mean, we're trying to provide the structure. We've done a market study relative to the Old Town block strategy, and that market study indicated that there is some residual demand for retail and service businesses today. So we're trying to capture that ability in Old Town. I think when we look at areas, Old Town has good bones, meaning it's walkable. There aren't a lot of businesses down here today, but it's walkable. We have very few walkable options in the West Valley, and particularly in the Phoenix area. And I think we're seeing some societal changes where more and more people are looking for those types of environments where they can live or work in close proximity to these businesses.
What I'm wondering is, a lot of the single family are going to be detached, small, little single family, because the lots are small. But you're right, we have this new building coming on. Are we looking forward to having multi-story apartment buildings with perhaps some of those services on the first floor of those buildings and living spaces on the second, third, fourth, whatever they are, so they can supply people that will want to walk in the area and use those services, as well as work within walking distance or biking distance? And is that going to be something that is looked forward to here? I know that Tempe and Scottsdale, when I looked at them 25, 30 years ago, looked very much like Old Town Peoria, but they have morphed into whole different things and have been economic engines for their cities. And keeping everything, everybody likes to think of the way it was, but we look back with the wrong side of binoculars and with rose-colored glasses. And if we have businesses coming down, we're going to need housing for those, and typically, it's going to have to be multi-story apartment condominium complexes. What are we thinking of, are we thinking of things like that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Condi, another excellent question. We are certainly looking for a mixed-use application in Old Town. So whether that comes in the form of multi-story apartments or more preferably probably mixed use, where you might have retail on the bottom floor and maybe either office or multifamily second and third floor. That's certainly what we're looking for in the Old Town area. Things that we're trying to balance in the Old Town area, I think right now the height limitation for this zoning district is, I think it's 3 stories. I think that's what it calls for. We're trying to keep things in scale, and we're trying to keep things that also pay homage to not only the scale, but the historical roots of the area. So we're trying to balance those 2 needs there. But certainly mixed use is absolutely what the city's looking for.
Okay. And that would be allowable under this plan?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Condi, mixed use is already permitted, but
Right.
as Randy indicated, there's actually a number of uses, some that I was very surprised about that the district doesn't currently permit, like hotel motel would be one, right? We don't currently allow a hotel in Old Town, which didn't make a lot of sense to us. So that's one example where we're trying to expand the use listing to really better position Old Town.
Okay.
Any further questions from the commission? Oh, my apologies. Did you want to say something?
I do.
Commissioner Grice? Yes.
If there's a business that would like to come in and it doesn't fit under any of the current categories in the matrix, what's the process for considering that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Grice, we encountered that sometimes. I mean, we try to cover all the uses in the zoning code, but the reality is sometimes something comes that doesn't fit one category. So what we do in that instance is we try to understand the nature and operation of the business and see if there is an analogous or another similar type of use that it can fit in. Maybe it behaves similarly to another use that's already in there. If it's not, that might, and we think it makes sense in the Old Town area, that might be a candidate for, a future amendment to the district. I think we have most of the uses that we think we desire in Old Town covered here, but you're right, there could be the possibility in the future that there's something we're not thinking of.
So is there another way to address it besides an amendment?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Grice, short of finding an analogous use that is similar, that we can classify it per that similar use, if it's something that's radically different that's not addressed in the code, we would have to come back and amend that portion of the code. But a lot of times we'll work with the applicant, and it could be that the operations and the way it functions is very similar to a use that's already addressed in the code, and we can make a finding that for the purposes of zoning that they are similar, and we can treat it as such.
Thank you.
Very good. Any further questions? I'd like to recognize that Chairman Sean Hutchinson has arrived. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this item, and then I'm going to hand the gavel back to the chairman. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing at this point. Ms. Ernst, have you received any speaker request forms for this case? Do we have any speakers for this? Anybody who wants to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Any further questions or comments from the commission before we take action on case TA 16-0002? All right, may I have a motion? Commissioner Patterson.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend approval of case TA 16-0002 to the city council as recommended by staff.
Thank you, Commissioner Patterson. We have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Alsop. We have a motion and a second on the table to recommend approval of case TA 16-0002 to the Peoria City Council. Please go ahead and vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to, at this point, hand the gavel back to Chairman Hutchinson to fulfill the rest of the meeting.
Well, my sincere apologies to everyone out here. Traffic, work, I don't know what to tell you.
Traffic.
We understand.
Let's just say that we're probably in for a much better chair in the next session than the current one, so. Speaking of that, the next item on the agenda is for election of officers. Discussion and possible action to elect officers for the Planning and Zoning Commission for 2019. The chair and the vice chair and the secretary are the three officers we're elected. Correct. So we will start with, let's start with the chair position. I'll take a motion for one of the eligible participants on the board for chairman of the Planning and Zoning.
I'd like to recommend that we move Jeff Nelson to chairman.
All right, we have a nomination for Jeff Nelson to chairman. Do we have a second on that?
Second?
Okay, do we have accept the nomination?
Accept the nomination.
Is there any other nominations for chair? Any other nominations for chair? Any other nominations for
Want some
chair?
time to think about it? Give it all you need.
I had to make it here to pass this over. So with that, I'm going to close the nominations for chair. Seeing no other candidate for chair, we can make this a, do we need a motion on this? Okay, well, we have one nomination for chair. We can go ahead and vote for the chair, I think. Oh, good luck.
Who's the dissenting?
Look at that.
Should have.
Chairman has been elected. Jeff Nelson will be chair for the next Planning and Zoning Commission. Next office is the vice chairman, and of the eligible participants, I could use a nomination for vice chair.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Commissioner Otluski for vice chair.
Okay, we have a nomination for Chairman Otluski for vice chair. Do we have a second?
Second.
Anything under discussion? Do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do.
Do we have any other nominations for vice chair? Any other nominations for vice chair? Any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, the vice chairman is closed. Please vote on the vice chair. And that also passes unanimously. Congratulations. And then we have the secretary of the board. Of the eligible for secretary, do we have a motion or a nomination on any of the eligible participants?
I'd like to recommend Brian Patterson.
Okay, we have a nomination for Brian Patterson. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to nominate Brian Patterson for the position of secretary. Do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Okay, are there any other nominations for secretary? Any other nominations for secretary? Any other nominations for secretary? Okay, we'll call the nomination closed. Please vote on the position of secretary. Brian Patterson. Outstanding. So we have a new slate of officers for the board. Moving forward, we have the next item on the agenda is the call to the public. Any members of the public like to speak? All right. Seeing none, we will have updates from staff next.
Good evening, Chair, and this is your last meeting, so we appreciate your service in going forward. We look forward to working with our new group as well, and for officers. Next meetings, we have two right now. February 7th, we are back before you for a regular meeting. We are anticipating a possible February 21st meeting right now. So February 7th, 21st, mark your calendars, and we'll see you soon.
Outstanding. Do we have anything further from the Planning and Zoning Commission? Any updates?
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Otluski.
Yeah, a couple comments. First, I think we should all look to Randy for our mustache in the future. Awesome job.
Outstanding.
Only Randy can pull that off, though.
Yeah, I was going to try, but it'd take me 12 years to get half of that. The other thing I'd like to do is to thank Chairman Hutchinson for your time as chairman and what you've done. You've wore it well. I love that a lot of the comments were made from you kind of at the end of our discussions were all based around helping Peoria grow, bringing employment to it. He's always looking out for our city. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that. It's been great working on this board. This is really a dynamic board with a lot of different experiences and a lot of different walks of life, and it's really good to have such a collaborative group and work so well together, and especially with the support of our staff in the city. It's really just the best. This is the best place to live in the entire country. Absolutely. And we have media reports that actually support that. So, but yeah, no, it's been really great to serve. Thanks. Any other comments from commissioners? Seeing none, I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all.